This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome back to the Warner Brothas Podcast. I'm Kyle, joined as always by my brother Keenan, by honorary Warner brother Timmy G. Tim was popping. Keenan was popping. How y'all doing?
Oh, we're great. Shout out to everybody who was ever a big Baller Brand fan.
I was gonna say Tim looks like he's swerving. Tim looks like he's swerving to Tweaker right now. He was heavy with the head bobs, like
swerve in the corner. Whoa. You're tweaking up. We also
Tim repping C4, Keenan repping Baller Brand.
I was gonna say Baller Brand, sponsored by Baller Brand Body Armor and C4. Not paid for it, unfortunately, but we're sponsored by them. Anyways, I'm great. Like Tim, you're good.
Doing very well. Yeah, I can't lie to you guys. Haven't even heard the whole song yet, but
don't need to.
I've heard the part that is catchy, and there you go. That's all you need.
The song's actually not bad. It's really not bad.
I'm with you right there. I've yet to hear the full song in full. I have just heard also the chorus, the hook, the most catchy part. So yeah, I've not heard the full thing, but I feel like I got the gist of it. And I also feel like I'm like kind of done with it already. Like I feel like I've heard it enough times where I'm like, all right, we love it because we're surprised with G-Lo, or we like what's going on here? Or is it that it is hot? Like the shit is hot, but I'm also like, I feel like we're giving I mean it's Alonzo work, it feels like, but yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you, it was it's one of those songs where I'll if it's on, I'm actually not mad at it. If it needs to be in certain settings though, it's not, it needs to be in certain settings, but I'm not gonna go be like out of the if I'm with friends and we're just having a good time and that song comes on, sure, but it's not gonna be one of those songs where I'm like, ah, man, I just came home and put on that Jello. Gotta grab that Jello. That's not it. But shout out to him though, because he made a hit. That's fine.
Shouts to LeVar.
As I said right before the pod, the biggest hip hop hit since Not Like Us. So shout out to him. I know it's only been like 7-8 months, but I'm not saying it's the best song clearly, but I'm just saying like as a viral hit wise, biggest one since Not Like Us. So
probably right.
Shout out to him. Right. But something that could have been a hit but wasn't a hit, The Weeknd. It was fine. We had 6 games. 6 games. Everything's always going to have enough of entertainment in it, but really it was 5 dominant performances and 1 really good game. So where do you guys... What?
I mean, we'll get to it. I thought it was a good game. I wouldn't say it was a memorable game.
So for me personally, I was thoroughly entertained throughout the entire thing, front to back. I didn't.
Oh, for sure,
I was
for
very
sure.
Happy with the game.
It was a good game, but I mean, you know, I think it's a better game because of how bad the other 5 were. You feel me? So that's really it.
It wasn't an all-timer or anything like that. I'm not trying to make it seem like that. It was just to me, a very good game it was a very good game to watch, but like it's not an all-time. It wasn't. Sure. If I said great, I didn't mean great, not all-timer, but to me it was a very good game, and then 5 whatevers.
I'm just being a hater, but funny enough, we will get to what we loved and hated this past weekend. That was actually a good segue unintentionally by me. We are going to do Warner Brothas Podcast here. We're going to do the 3 things we loved from this past weekend, the 3 things we hated from this past weekend. Ultimately, that'll be 9 things that we loved and hated from this past weekend. Where do you guys want to start? You guys want to start with positivity? Do you guys want to start with negativity? Where do you want to start here?
Timmy, you start and you tell me, and you just show if you want to be A positive or B negative.
See, I got one that fits in both, so I'm just gonna lead with that, and then you guys take it wherever you want.
Okay. Okay.
So the one that I have I loved it. I also hated it. The Steelers lose in the first round again. Classic Pittsburgh fashion. They make it all the way there just to get bounced in the first round. They pretty much got dominated. You know, they had a good third quarter, but other than that, it was a pretty bad game for them. Sure. I love it because I'm a Pittsburgh hater. I don't know why I am. There's really no reason for me to hate them. They have not wronged me once in my life. But I hate to see it because that could have been a better team that would have put up a better fight. I know if the Bengals made it, they wouldn't have been in that seed. But I just think that the Bengals would have put up more of a fight than the Steelers did. So
we would have had another classic probably. They would have. The Ravens probably win. I mean, it's hard to beat a team three times, but the Ravens probably win it. And even if they do, whatever. But at least we walk out. That's the reason why I wanted them in the 7 so bad. And we'll get it. And we might talk about Bills Broncos. I don't know, but I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. But 31-7. I think that game could have been 34-31, a laser light show, and we could have gotten something fun. That's all I wanted.
If the Bengals had made it somehow into this 5 seed and played the Ravens, or were they the 6 seed? Sorry, we would have probably had a 700 or 800 yard game, easy. A lot of points. It would have been entertaining to watch, but instead we get fun. The Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited Steelers, completely limited all game long.
Well, it sounds like that was more in the love department. Keenan, I guess you've kind of responded to that. Do you anything more to elaborate on? You guys gonna still take the Bengals end of it? Because go ahead.
No, so something that I wrote down when I've been kind of listening to. I'm gonna talk about the Steelers here real quick. And something that I've kind of wrote down is Mike Tomlin. Obviously, there's been talk a lot of it about should he be there, should he not be there. And here's what I'm putting out a bold. We're known for bold predictions. Bold prediction for me is this. The Jets are going to trade a 2nd-round pick for Mike Tomlin, and then they're going to sign Sam Darnold. That feels so Jet. It feels so Jet to go get Mike Tomlin, Sam Darnold, and then you're going to be like, well, Sam Darnold played very well. You bring him back home. Now he's been in situations because Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold's my age. He's 27. And he's young. You can't bring in Mike Tomlin. You already got pieces there. I think Aaron Rodgers probably retires too. That's what I think the Jets offseason looks like. And Jets fans walk into next year thinking that, hey, we've now got a real coach. I'm in a situation. We got Sam Darnold. Do you see what he did last year during the regular season for most of the season there? We've got weapons. We've got and they'll go 7-9 or 7-10. Or 8-9, and that will be them. But that is my bold prediction. And Mike Tomlin will be traded for a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, one of those two, to the Jets.
Responding to that, the only reason I can say that's not Jets is because that would be way too smart to trade for Mike Tomlin. I know people are in the camp of Mike Tomlin doesn't win in the playoffs, which is fair. The amount of points he's given up in his last 6 matchups, more than fair. And it's more than fair, especially now, if the Steelers wanted to get rid of Mike Tomlin, if they wanted to part ways. He's been there for 18 years, okay? I mean, your kid has been born and then gone through high school by the time Mike Tomlin has been with the Steelers, right? And if they wanted to keep him, I wouldn't begrudge that either. I think, and I feel the same, Keenan, about Mike McCarthy, who just got let go of the Cowboys, and maybe we'll talk about that later, but it's hard to even find good coaches who just win in the regular season. Whether or not they win in the playoffs or not, it's hard to find coaches who regularly win, consistently win in the regular season. And Mike Tomlin does that. And, let's be real here. They spent $3 million on QBs. You got a $3 million effort on QBs here. And it's not like they got real weapons, really, aside from Najee, aside from George Pickens. So I really do think with what they got, Tomlin did okay. Did more than okay. That last stretch of the season really seemed to break them when they played 3 games in 11 days. Didn't seem to break the Texans, Ravens, or Chiefs, but the Steelers, for whatever reason, it got to. And we kind of forecasted that as a group here in the preseason when we were doing our predictions, that they could get off to a hot start and maybe fall apart in the latter half of the season. I see a lot of people coming at Russ, too, talking about he's trash, he's this or that. I thought 3/4 of the season, maybe even more than that, maybe 85% of the season, I thought Russ was really good. He fell apart. He fell apart with the team in the last half of the season, but again, that team was very dependent on if George Pickens played or not. That's a lot of how the last month of the season went for them. In December, as recent as December, I should say, they were the 1 seed. So I'm going to shoot the Steelers some bail there. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of Tomlin. I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Darnold ended up in Pittsburgh next year.
That's another.
Maybe they kept Tomlin.
So let me also. I can even. Tomlin and Darnold will be paired next season. Where it is,
anywhere.
It's going to be Tomlin and Darnold. He's either going to be in Pitt. I mean, they might take Quinn Ewers, which would be so Steeler. That would be such a Steeler pick for Quinn Ewers there. Or it's going to be Sam Darnold or something. But the thing with the Steelers is the way that they're presently ran and the way they go about things are just not going to – I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl or be like –
maybe not.
Get there.
Maybe not.
They're going to be a good team that gets to – they're going to be a good team that can either get to 9, 10, 11 wins and always be fighting for the playoffs. They either get in and then they lose in the first round, or they're not going to get in at all because they'll be right on the outside looking in but still have a winning record. Like that just seems like they're going to be consistently in that. They're never good enough to go get a game changer at quarterback. They don't go out there and just make moves for it, and their team just has the same kind of old team.
My response to that would be, though, and this is how NFL fans are, this is how NFL media is. They ended up with 10 wins, the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically a coin flip away from being in the Charger spot where they face the Texans, right? There's a great chance if they end up playing the Texans, if they beat the Bengals last Saturday or the Saturday prior, there's a great chance that they end up playing the Texans, beating the Texans, then they got the Chiefs on divisional weekend. And that we all say, hey, that was a really successful season. The line was, I think it got up to 10 for the Ravens Steelers, right? They weren't expected to win in that game. We expect them to be in that game, given that it was the third divisional game, given the history of the Steelers and Ravens. But, I mean, to sit there and call this season, I'm not saying you, Keen, I'm saying maybe Steelers fans, to call this season a failure or to call this season underwhelming, I thought Tomlin once again did a great job. And let's say this is Tomlin's last season. Whoever gets him is getting at least an A coach. Maybe not an A+, but you're getting an A coach. You're getting an upper echelon coach. You're getting someone you want coaching your team. I would take him on the Patriots. We got Vrabel, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I would absolutely take Tomlin coaching my team any day of the week for sure. So, like you said, it was the typical Steelers season. But, hey, they came in with Justin Fields and Russ, and people were clowning them for that. And they ended up at one point a one-loss team. Again, as recently as a month ago, first in the whole AFC. I thought they did okay. And they ran into a buzzsaw that is Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So I ain't too mad at it.
Timmy, any response?
I think the front office has to kind of bear a lot of this blame here. Like you said, they're not a very talented offense. Tomlin's obviously going to make a great defense out of what they get, and they do seem to go out and sign and even trade for defensive pieces, but they are not very aggressive when it comes to offense. They were just fine with Najee and Jaylen Warren, which is a pretty good backfield. It's definitely not top tier, but it's probably a top 10 backfield just across the league. Wide receiver, they have absolutely no depth, and then Freiermuth is there sometimes, but then he's not. So I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe make a trade, go get some pieces. Let's actually load up and see what a Steelers offense that looks really good talent-wise can do with Tomlin there. I think this will be Tomlin's last year, this next year. If he doesn't win a playoff game next year, I think they're going to mutually part ways. I think they're going to say, hey, 19 years, we had a really good run, never below 500, but we didn't get any postseason success out of it, so get out of there.
Go on, Tim. I don't know if you have any more.
I was going to make a Sam Darnold comment, but if you're on the Steelers, go for it.
If you make a Sam Darnold comment, we can come back to Steelers. I was just going to have one lasting point, but make your Sam Darnold comment.
I think Sam Darnold will be a Cleveland Brown.
Ooh. Okay.
I think they're not ready to take a shot on quarterback. Stefanski was kind of already on the hot seat this year. They had a really bad season. I don't think they're ready to commit to a full rebuild offensively with a new QB being a rookie. So I think they're going to try to sign somebody, get some talent otherwise, like they can. And I think Sam Darnold is a perfect bridge QB. I think Stefanski can get a lot out of him. I think it'll be fine. And then next year, maybe Stefanski won't even be there next year. I don't know. But
Okay. Last thing on the Steelers is I just think that they're kind of just a team. I just feel like they're going to be in the same cycle. They're going to be in the same cycle because they just do the same exact things and they're not changing from doing those exact same things. And so I just feel until they make a major move, this is the Steelers that we're going to find. They're going to be 9-8 to 11-6 and lose in the first round of the playoffs. But anyways, we can move on.
I gotta say, I do disagree with that a little bit. They did draft Pickett, and it just didn't work out. That's automatically going to set. If you draft the wrong quarterback, that usually sets your franchise 2 or 3 years back, and they bounce back pretty immediately.
But no, and my point in saying that is they're always going to have the 17th to 23rd pick. And
true. I hear you.
And so you're like you have to like smash at that pick to get a guy like Quinn. Like Quinn Ewers, I say he's a perfect person that for the Steelers for what they do is because he's a quarterback who has possible potential, but really not a lot of people are super high on, and is a quarterback who was a starter at a high level program, and it's like he just feels like a Steeler. Like that just he feels like a guy who's going to be a starter for the Steelers and will be a solid guy. He'll just be a solid quarterback. Like that kind of like that's the thing that's tough for them is they're always at that 17 to 23 or 24. So they never get a top guy. So but they never trade for anything either. And quarterback's always the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I want to spend too much time on this. I know we want to move on to our next what we love, but I just think with the Steelers, it's kind of twofold. Like they held on to Big Ben for too long. They were loyal. They're a loyal franchise. Giants did the same thing with Eli, and then on top of that, they happened to pick that wrong quarterback. And then on top of that, they also were in the era of a very good Ravens team with Flacco. They were there the entire Patriots dynasty. So they just happen to run into good teams on top of Tomlin just happening to have his worst performance. But I think if NFL franchises had to choose, like if you had to be the Steelers franchise where you're in the playoffs or above 500 every year and you're in the mix, you would take that over purgatory. You'd take that over, whatever else there is, being the Cleveland Browns the last 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just think it's twofold with the Steelers. So I don't necessarily disagree with either one of you.
You would take it over some of the worst, but you wouldn't take it over some of the ones that.
And let's be clear, he's got a Super Bowl too. He's got a ring. He's a made man.
Because they got a guy because they were able to draft super high in the draft and then they found their guy. I know like just quarterbacks typically one falls in your lap and you manage to get it, but most of the time it's either like a big trade, high draft pick or something along those lines. But anyways, we'll move on from the Steelers. I'm going to quickly go into something that I loved. One of the things that I loved from the weekend was Jayden Daniels poise under pressure, man. He feels even, I don't know if this is me being prisoner of a moment or something, but like, I guess he just because of a little bit being more dynamic, he feels even a little more than CJ Stroud than was last year. Like CJ Stroud, I was so impressed with him last year throughout the entire year, and it was because of the fact that like he was so low risk, high reward. He was willing to push the ball down the field. Everything was so fluent the way that he was going through things. And then obviously last year they blitzed the Browns, and that was basically the same thing they did to the Chargers in the second half. They did the same thing last year. And Jayden was the same way, but obviously he has the added leg component that CJ was using in the second half. It's something that I've always thought he should do more. We saw in the last bowl game he played in college, he was running a lot in the second half. He's got wheels. He's got the ability to go, and he just doesn't do it enough, in my personal opinion. And Jayden, I think it was like 36 yards, 13 carries, but it was a lot of, okay, I'm taking a bad play and making it 4 yards. I don't have it, like I'm going to get sacked here. Let me make a couple maneuvers, and then we'll get to this spot here. And I just love the way that he played in this game against the Bucs. I had them winning. And a lot of the reason why was because of Jayden and the potential that he has. In my ranking, I had him lower due to the fact that he hadn't done it and I wanted to see it before I put it there. But he didn't he didn't do anything out of the realm of what I thought he could do, and kind of did what I thought he was going to do, which is why he's so great. And shout out to him, and also shout out to CJ Stroud too, real quick, because I mentioned his name. I thought after that first shaky start, he played very well in the second half of that game. So shout out to CJ too. But Jayden Daniels was my one thing that I took away. Well, my first love, my first true love.
Tim, what you got?
I have that on my list as well. So that was the biggest thing, was under pressure. Jayden Daniels didn't fold, didn't crack, didn't anything. He just looked like he's a veteran playing in the NFL. I think Jayden played even better than CJ Stroud did his rookie year. In that game where they absolutely blitzed the Browns, it did come with a lot of defense in that game too. They had 2 pick sixes in that game. It wasn't quite the same environment that Jayden played in. So I just want to say Jayden Daniels, incredible player. He already looks like a veteran in the NFL. So I also have that on my list.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think each of you echoed really what we all talked about last week. It's why me and Tim would have had him higher on the QB tier list. It's why I brought up the argument. I forget which week you did your first QB tiers, whether it was like week 6, week 8. But I brought up him versus Stafford early on because exactly what you said. Like, you could see his poise early on this year. You could see he was unfazed. I really think, we're talking about quarterbacks being drafted. I really think we could see a trend maybe where the older quarterbacks now get drafted a little higher with the success of Jayden Daniels, with the success of Bo Nix. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that moving forward. But yeah, man, that was a good game. I expected more out of that game. I thought it was going to be like a, dual 30-point up and down. He's scoring, now Jayden Daniels scoring type of thing, but ended up being a kind of weird game. Weird clock management at the end by Todd Bowles. I get it.
The Commanders sat on the ball.
Sure.
They ran 70 plays to the Buccaneers 48. It was like the Bucs, when they got it, other than that Baker fumble, which was just like a timing snap thing, whatever, they were doing whatever they wanted to pretty much up and down the field for the most part. They just didn't get the ball. It was 13 play drives for the Commanders because they were getting to 3rd and 4th down and going for it on 4th down. They were 3 of 5 on 4th down. Shout out to Jayden. So, it was a weird game because the Commanders were not pressing the ball down the field. They're like, we're just going to sit on it. And we're just going to make our quarterback's going to make the right read, the right play. Your defense is going to get tired, and that's what happened.
For sure. Yeah, no, it was entertaining, and I cannot wait to see this Lions-Commanders matchup. Both teams, both Dans, love going for it on 4th down. So we might never see a punt. We might see someone go for it on 4th and 16.
It might be only each team gets 4 possessions. It's either each team are going to get 4 or 14. It's going to be one of those, every team, it's going to be each team might just get 4 or 5 possessions. Hey, you're not getting the ball much. You make your most of it when you have it. And it still might be 35-28.
It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a fun game for sure. And real quick, and I don't know if we'll bring this up later, but I mentioned Patriots hired Vrabel, and I see a lot of the Patriots fans who are against the hire. 2 things. They're acting like Vrabel's like this. Yeah, no, they're out there, Keenan. I know. But 2 things. They act like he's goddamn, who's the most conservative head coach I can think of? They act like he wants to run the ball 45 times a game and not even trust his quarterback, which, that happens when you have Derrick Henry, an all-time great Hall of Fame
and
running
Ryan
back, and
Tannehill.
you have Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback. You're going to revolve your offense. Yeah, these are some, I'll be nice here. These are some less than football smart Patriots fans, if I'm being nice, right?
Ryan Tannehill had 33 touchdowns to 7 picks and 3,800 yards in a season. They went 11-5, and then brought him to 12-5 and 12-5, and Ryan Tannehill was 21-14.
That would be my point, and other people's points who think this is a good hire by the Patriots, right? My other point here would be
great hire.
Yeah, exactly. They got the number one candidate. They got the number one candidate on the board. My point though in this game though, Commanders, Buccaneers. You got 2 defensive coaches in that game, which Vrabel is as well, who have 2 stud offensive coordinators. Look where they are. Each 10-win teams, each in the playoffs, each had a chance to go on and play in the divisional round and are more than deserving. All right, so yes, Vrabel is a defensive coach, Patriots fans, but you don't have to have an offensive coach to bring the most out of Drake May. You can hire a great offensive coordinator. I know they're talking about Josh McDaniels coming back, and I know people feel a way about that. I seem to think, I'm under the impression that Josh McDaniels is never going to get a head coaching job again. He's going to be all in on being an offensive coordinator. And guess what? Once upon a time, he was an elite offensive coordinator. So
I actually wouldn't mind having McDaniels in New England. I wouldn't, depending on what the options are out there, I wouldn't hate it.
I think just to respond to that, from what I see, his number one option would have been the OC that just got promoted in Cleveland. That would have been his number one option, and then McDaniels would have been the number two. So it looks like McDaniels will be the OC, but who knows?
Quickly, right before I allow Timmy to speak again, D'Amico Ryans.
It is Martin Luther King Day, so yes, Martin Luther King's birthday. Tim will be speaking when he's told to speak.
D'Amico Ryans, defensive coach.
Yep.
Dan Campbell, defensive coach.
Sure.
Dan Quinn, defensive coach.
Yep.
John Harbaugh, known defensive guy. Sean McDermott, defensive guy. That's 5 of the 8 teams that are in. And then you have Andy Reid, who's obviously an offensive guy, but he's just Andy Reid. You've got Sean McVay, who is literally the leader of the new school when it comes to all of these offensive coaches. And then you got Nick Sirianni, which what is he? Like, what? I don't actually really know. Is he supposed to be a defensive guy? Like,
he's more like a culture
couldn't
guy.
actually tell you.
I don't know what his past is. I could tell you here real quick.
Being quite honest, I don't know.
He was a defensive backs coach. He coached wide. So he's all over. And like McVay,
so he's been all over.
Like you said, McVay's definitely, he came for the offensive tree, but like he coaches more like a Belichick, like a Harbaugh. And same with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a former quarterback who coaches more like his brother than he does, like a Kevin O'Connell or something like that. You know what I mean? Or even a McVay,
Just
one
saying,
of these offensive
defensive coaches work in this league because that's just what they are.
And Sirianni was an OC. Sirianni was an OC for the Colts before.
So 3 offensive guys, 5 defensive guys. I think Vrabel's going to be fine. Timmy, please speak.
I think Vrabel will probably be fine. I think if they hire McDaniels, there's going to be a lot of pushback on that. And I'll probably be one of those guys. I mean, the last memories we have of McDaniels is really, really bad with the Raiders. So I think a lot of people are going to come out and say that he was a product of Tom Brady and that's the only reason they succeeded when he was there. So I don't know. I don't know with McDaniels. I probably would lean towards not succeeding there. This team needs a lot of talent. I don't think this is a team that's going to be like Washington that can turn it around and be a borderline playoff team next year. Vrabel's definitely the guy that can do that. And I get it. You guys are New England fans, so I want you guys to be on the side of it will happen. So I'm going to let that be. I think this team is still 2 or 3 years out, and I don't think McDaniels is going to be a piece of the puzzle that fixes it.
Quick response to that.
We are. Sorry, I was have one sentence. We're We're 2 years out with bad off seasons and drafts. We're an off season out with a good off season and a good draft. We have a proper off season, a proper draft. We're fine. Vrabel, Drake
That's
May,
kind of like
the defense.
That's a lot of teams, though. That's like 10 of the missing playoff teams are just 1 or 2 years out if they just nail the draft and they hire all the right people and everything goes perfect for them.
I think we have the head coach right. We have the quarterback right. We have good ownership.
I agree.
That is really that is very difficult to nail, and a lot of teams can't get that. So I think we have the quarterback and the coach right. We now need to get an offensive mind in there, and then we need to get pieces around him. How long does it take for us to get the true right pieces around him? That is going to be how. But I think we got the head coach and the quarterback. First, we need to go draft the tackle, or we need to get a tackle, make sure we can protect his blind side for sure. And then, but sorry, Kyle. More than
Only thing I was gonna say was, we got the most cap room in the league. Draft is always a crapshoot. We're gonna hit on some, we'll probably miss on some too, right? So you really got to go 50 to 60% in the draft. sign some good players. But, I was explaining this to other Patriots fans over the weekend why I was so big on Vrabel. This was projected to be a 4 or 5 win team. We got 4, right? Vrabel's the type of guy, if you're projecting a 4 or 5 win team, let's say we give Vrabel this roster last year. I believe Vrabel gets 6 or 7 wins, right? So if we get a team, let's say the offseason's good enough to where we're just a 6-win team, I think Vrabel then will trend you towards a wild card spot just off good coaching, just off toughness, just off defense. I mean, we've seen that. Patriots will have a last place schedule too. So, I mean, that schedule would seemingly be a little bit easier. But we'll see. I'll talk more about the Pats, obviously, more after the draft, more after free agency. But like Keenan said, they're trending in the right direction. They got a head coach. Sad to see Mayo go because I really did want to see that work out, but he clearly just was not ready. And you got Drake May. You got a young, promising quarterback. You've got some okay receivers. You got a tight end. You got pieces on defense. Let's see what we can do. Moving on, though, to what I loved this weekend. Number one, I had Lamar and Henry. I mean, that 1-2 punch, that was like some 2001,
Lightning
2002.
McQueen.
That was like some 2001, 2002 Kobe and Shaq shit. They were unstoppable. And I don't see how many defenses are going to combat this, whether they end this weekend against the Bills, whether the Bills get the job done, whether they don't get the job done. I just don't see how anyone's going to stop this two-headed monster of Lamar and Derrick Henry, and that's just in the running department. Okay, I mean, they were treating Lamar like it was college Lamar. He at one point ran the ball 7 straight times. They had one drive against the Steelers. I don't know how we didn't bring this up in the first segment about the Steelers. They had a 13-play all-run touchdown drive against the Steelers. No passes. Like, that's dominant. And if there was one thing we would have said about the Steelers going into that game, regardless, we would have said, oh, they're going to hold up on defense. They're going to stop them sometimes. They're tough. If they're doing that to the Steelers defense, what the fuck are they going to do to the Bills defense? I know McDermott's a defensive guy, and I know their defense holds up some, but the Steelers at least have a true tough defense, a true, we can get stops here and there type of defense. And the Ravens treated them like they were just, a JV team. So whether this is their last game against the Bills, whether it's not, I don't see how any team in the AFC or NFC stops their run game. And then after that opens everything up, obviously, with the play action, with Lamar on the rollout game, Lamar's deep ball game. It's scary hours there. So I loved it. I've never seen anything quite like that, quite as explosive as that with Lamar and Derrick Henry in the run game. So that's my love, my first love, as Keenan put it.
One true love, man.
My one true love.
Everything you said was perfect. Sorry, Tim. I'm going to quickly say that everything you said was perfect. Lamar literally said watching Derrick Henry was like watching Lightning McQueen. He said that post game, which was hilarious to me. But yeah, no, that game was over after the first drive. You knew that it was over. Lamar was comfy. They were walking all over him. It didn't matter. That game was over after the first drive. Shout out to them. That was a fun game to watch on their behalf.
I definitely have more confidence in this Baltimore Ravens team than I did last year. Last year, their team defense was number 1 in the league. It was the best defense they had. Their offense was still great, but it didn't have Derrick Henry on it. He completely changes this. Now they have by far the best running attack between Lamar and Derrick Henry. So they can control any game they want to if they want to just run the ball, like Kyle said, for an entire drive and score a touchdown. So this gives me the most confidence. This next game is actually one of the things that I hate about this playoffs is we get to see the Bills take on the Ravens in the divisional round, which this should be the championship game. And it really sucks that both these juggernauts meet right here instead of meeting 2 weeks from this Sunday or whatever. So I'm more confident than I think I have ever been in the Baltimore Ravens and their ability to win a Super Bowl right now, this moment in time.
Okay.
Keenan, one thing you hated from this weekend.
That's one thing. I had the Steelers on this list. That's 1, 2. Justin Herbert's performance. Hated everything about it. Yeah, man, this is a guy who When it talks about making all the throws, he can make every throw and do all these things. And then obviously his first playoff game, played a great first half. They got up 27 on the Jags, and they blew a 27-point lead. You have to put some of that on Herbert. You can't muster anything, but also that comes down to coaching too. You put that on Brandon Staley, fine. And then this game, you got the coach, your team, your favorite. I understand you're not at home, but you're still favored in this game, and your defense is playing very well early. And you continue to let this team off the hook by not getting touchdowns early. You get field goals, you let this team, and then late in the game, you just continue to throw interception after interception. Shout out to Stingley Jr. because he balled back-to-back years in the Wildcard week, and he's balling out. But Justin Herbert, man, that can't be the performance you put forth. You can't have more picks in one game than you have in 17. That just can't happen. Just can't happen. So Justin Herbert was really it for me.
Tim, what you think?
Can't really agree any more than what you just said. He has to kind of bear all this blame, and it really sucks because now this is like the second game that we give a lot of the blame to Justin Herbert for losing in the playoffs. Obviously, a couple years ago, we got that Jaguars comeback game. So it doesn't look too good for Herbert being a playoff quarterback. One thing that I hated was it was Ladd McConkey versus everyone. That was it. He was the only person getting catches in this game. Herbert threw multiple catches to 3 people. One of them was Derek Stingley Jr. Everybody else had 1 catch or less. That's a terrible thing when you're relying on one person to do it all. And J.K. Dobbins wasn't very effective in this one. So it was really disappointing to watch. After watching the first quarter, I thought, okay, we're going to get a lower scoring, close game. And it all just went to hell in the second half. So yes, I was extremely disappointed with this game.
And it's not that they lost, it's how they lost. If they come out of this game and it's a 24-21 loss, CJ Stroud makes a great plays at the end, leads them on the drive, and that's okay because no one thought that this team was going to do. I mean, Timmy had him in the conference championship game, thought he was going to upset. Maybe it was a little bit more hopeful too with the Chiefs because obviously you see a division opponent that you can play close and you actually match up with them, then that could work too. But it's one of those things where we didn't think that their personnel was great. And if your personnel isn't great, you have to play great as a quarterback. And you didn't. Like Josh Allen this weekend, we all gave Josh Allen a chance to win the game. And it's not because he has the better weapons and all pro bowlers, all pros all over. It's because when that guy gets into the playoffs, that whatever he is in the regular season, he ramps it up and he becomes phenomenal in the playoffs. Regardless of win or loss, he's been phenomenal outside his first season. So at some point when you're that guy, you've got to kind of elevate the guys around you, and Justin Herbert in back-to-back playoff games hasn't. That doesn't mean he can't. That doesn't mean he's a wash or terrible playoff performer or whatnot. It's just he hasn't done it yet. He's got to do it. But the Chargers have what pieces to go get in the offseason. They can go do that too. So.
Yeah, overall, I don't have any sweeping takes from this game. It was a super weird game because it was close. Felt like the Chargers were outplaying the Texans. Ultimate feels like the better team lost. Honestly, I'm still surprised that we got the Texans going to Kansas City at the end of the day. But it was a weird game, and a lot of the game hinged on the non-intentional grounding call that should have been called. Then the wheels kind of fell off after that. Texans they go down and score. Herbert has that pass to McConkey that's high. That ends up being a pick six, obviously. The other picks, I think there was one off Drizzly's hands, right? And then the other 2, they were really late in the game when the game was kind of over. So I'm not really it was 4 picks in totality, but I'm not really looking at those last 2. I'm really looking at that Drizzly one, and I'm looking at that the first one of McConkey, which was just a terrible throw. And I'll be honest, man, just looking at it, rooting for the Chargers. I really want to see the Chargers-Chiefs matchup next weekend. When they fell behind I'm kind of like, man, I don't know if the Chargers can really do it. Like, they weren't taking advantage of the opportunities in the first half. They only ended up with 6 points, right? They only ended up with a few
game
field
should have
goals.
been 20-0 before the Texans actually got to a point where they were starting to play again. They could have put it away. Super, like, not
Should have
that
been.
the Texans are the same level as this team, of course, but like against the Patriots, they walked down on the Patriots like the last week of the season. They walked down on the Patriots, scored, turnover, walked down on them again, scored again, and they ran all over them, just doing what they were supposed to do. You saw it against a lot of bad teams this year. So,
and props to the Texans defense. That looked like a defense that could absolutely play in deep playoff runs. And the Chargers defense looked like that for much of the game, honestly. Then the wheels just fell off. That was a crazy thing to me for this Harbaugh team. Tim, I think you said that in the group chat. The wheels just absolutely fell off. If you tell me Herbert throws 4 picks and it's like 13-point loss, okay, but 34-10, I wasn't really seeing that. And it just seemed like all the gas came out. It really did. It was such a weird game. But Keenan, like you said, I'm not gonna kill Herbert too much for it. If he comes back next year, let's say they're a 12-win team, 11-win team next year again, and they come back and have a terrible, opening round game or whatever happens, he plays terribly, then okay. Then we got 3. Then we can really say, okay, Herbert, what's up now? But this game overall was just, sometimes you get weird playoff games, and that was this because it really was the tale of two halves. And again, I think the game really hinged on that non-call intentional grounding. I think we're looking at a different game here if that gets called as it should have been.
Yep, 100% agree. Timmy, what's one thing you hated?
I hate seeing people get injured, and I know that's like a big reason why the Packers offense didn't work. Dobbs gets injured. We saw Jayden Reed go down, and obviously they had Christian Watson already out. But this offense did not look good at all. And I'm happy to see them have lost because I don't want to see that game ever again. So I was just very disappointed in Jordan Love. 3 picks, can't have that, not in a playoff game. This game was actually pretty close, like a winnable game, no doubt, if he doesn't turn the ball over like he did. So I was very disappointed in that game as well. We kind of saw this with all the games. There was a little bit of disappointment on one side. And that's definitely one that I was hoping we'd get a little bit more of an entertaining game like they did week 1 of the season, kicking off the season. We had a pretty damn good game. And then we end it on a really bad game. So,
yeah, if there was one game I would have bet my life on that, like, we're getting a good game this weekend, we're getting even a great game this weekend, it would have been Packers-Eagles. Like, I thought for sure that game was going to be in contention in the fourth quarter, which I guess technically it was, but, I thought it would have been a field goal game in the fourth quarter. So, yeah. I mean, that game, it just sucked for the Packers. Like you said, they got so many injuries, but they also got so many penalties. You want to talk about same thing with the Harbaugh and the Chargers, man. Like, I wasn't expecting that out of the Chargers. I wasn't expecting that out of a Harbaugh-led team. I wasn't expecting a Matt LaFleur led team to look so unprepared. They had tons of penalties, holding, false starts. Like, it was just an ugly performance from them. They looked ill prepared. And then, like you said, the injuries on top of it, it just kind of, it was one on top of the other. And then it ended in a loss and a colossal loss. Honestly, it felt more like a blowout when it really wasn't. So super weird game again there.
I didn't love the game on either side. Really, take out the running backs on both teams, the game wasn't great. Like, Saquon obviously looked as good as Saquon's going to look. He ended with a $119 rushing, could have been a $170 because clearly he could have busted that last one if he wanted to. He just slid down. He had 60 more yards. He easily could have ran. And
should have ran it.
The only reason why he didn't, the only reason why the Packers didn't get walked all over, like blown out score-wise, is because Josh Jacobs was keeping him in the game. So the way Josh Jacobs is running the football downhill and the way he was playing, I mean, give credit to the offensive line too, because it's not only Josh Jacobs. So that offensive line was getting some push in the second half especially. But Jordan Love didn't play well. Obviously, when you have 5th and 6th string receivers, I mean, the Packers have a B receiving core, and it's because they have a bunch, like Jayden Reed can be like a gadget 1, but they don't have like a true, like, this is a 1, this is a 2, like the Vikings. Jefferson 1, Addison 2, Naylor 3, great tight end kind of thing.
They're by committee.
They have like a bunch of they're by committee, and they have a bunch of guys who can do different things. Dobbs can really good underneath and really good with his hands and good route running. Reed gadget guy can kind of get over the top. You get him on swing routes and blah, blah, blah. You've got Watson, which they missed him a lot, being able to get over the top downfield, and then you kind of go from there down their receiver depth. But wasn't great. Jordan Love, not a great performance. They're like the Bengals too, in the sense next year's. I want to see them start to get going early. They got wins early, so like credit to them. They were able to get to the 7th seed, but again, back-to-back years as a 7th seed, especially in a division that the Vikings may not be a 14-win team again, but they're going to be a team that I don't think they fall off. The Lions are still going to be there. The Bears really only can go up.
In defense of the Pack, though, Jordan Love got injured early on, and they never really recovered.
Absolutely.
He missed those first few weeks.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. They had a weird season because they had not consistent quarterback play, because Jordan Love wasn't even consistent week to week. So another thing I'd like to see from them this coming year, like I don't blame them, or they're not like they're let down or anything like that. They did what I kind of thought they were going to do this year. For me personally, I didn't have them, like especially as throughout the year, I thought they were going to be a good team that was going to make the playoffs and could win a playoff game. They didn't end up winning a playoff game, but injuries are going to get you. Doesn't really change too much about what I feel about the Packers overall. Still a very good team, formidable opponent next year. A team that should be fighting for a playoff spot. And depending on what you do in the offseason, could be a team that you really have championship game aspirations for.
For sure. I'll be quick here. The first thing I hated this weekend was just the amount of blowouts. I think any NFL fan would have had that. And funny enough, guys, last year, if you look back at last year's Wildcard weekend games, it was the same thing. We only got one good game, and it was Lions and Rams. Everything else was either a blowout or kind of a weird game. Keenan, when they first extended to 7 teams and only one team getting the bye on each conference, I killed it on here. When we were talking about the expansion of the playoffs, I killed it. I said, the NFL playoffs were perfect, I don't see why you do that. I actually hate 17 games more. We'll eventually get to 18 games, whatever. Keenan, I actually ended up coming around, especially this year, where I like it, where I like the 7 teams, where I feel like that number 1 seed means more, that they only get the bye. I kind of like that more than prior. That being said, the last 2 years have been just shitty games. You've got literally two good games in the last 2 years out of Wildcard weekend, and we could look back to the year before that and whatnot, but I actually think
seeds typically get blown out for the most part, other than the only win was last year when the Packers actually blew out the Cowboys pretty much. Yeah. But I have a love-hate relationship with it a little bit personally. I love it because I think it makes the end of the season push for teams like Cincinnati this year or Miami, who they got injured early in the season, but they were able to kind of get back. It makes that interesting because those teams that might not actually be bad teams can have a chance to get there. But then again, at the same time, I don't also feel like you're getting great performances. I don't feel like you're always getting great performances from the 7, so it's kind of like
Well, weirdly
at the
enough,
same time,
I kind of think it's all been by chance. Like, I really do think this has just been like random games that ended up shitty that could have been good. You know what I mean? Because like, especially in the NFC where 7 through 1, all those teams can compete. All teams aren't contenders, but 7 through 1, all teams can compete. All teams can play. Like, this is the deepest NFC field I've seen in a while. And actually in any conference, deepest field I've seen in a while. And it just didn't happen. Like, we all like, even Chargers Texans, that had the making of low scoring, but at least close. And I would at least say the one thing, I mean, yes, I got it in my hate, but I would say the Saturday games, even though they were both blowouts, they were at least entertaining. Whereas Bills-Broncos went exactly how we thought it would. And then, like we said, Eagles-Packers, that was just a fucking weird game. You know what I mean? All the injuries.
It was the worst game of the weekend.
And it was just ugly. It was absolutely an ugly game. And then we got a great game Sunday night. And then I could argue last night was also the worst game of the weekend. But, 2 games in contention for that between the Monday night game and the Eagles and Packers. Just weird for the NFL. It really doesn't matter because they're going to rake in all the ratings anyway. But it is weird. I think, obviously we'll have the same situation next year where we got the 7th seed. That's not going away. And, eventually we are going to have a weekend full of just great games. I do think it's crazy how back-to-back years, though, you literally only get 2 games out of 14 that are worth watching. So, yeah. We can move on. You guys. Oh, go ahead.
It kind of makes sense that they're kind of blowouts. Like the NFL, when they expanded to 7 teams, they literally said, okay, the number 2 seed, a team that in prior years was good enough to earn a first-round bye, is going to play a game this weekend. Not only that, but we're going to expand it so they're going to play an even inferior opponent than the 6th seed. So, it totally makes sense. They took a team that deserved a bye, and they said, you're going to play, the best, worst team in the NFL. It kind of just explains.
You're going to play the first loser.
Exactly. You're going to play the best, worst team.
Yeah, and and the thing about it, too, is not that I hate on this at all, what it matters. Josh Allen doesn't ever get a bye. Lamar gets the buys or Mahomes gets the buys.
Keenan, can I stop you?
What's up?
Ja Morant, did you see this?
I saw a notification.
Ja Morant, Blake Griffin, Wemby, but it didn't count for some reason.
What?
It would have been. It would have
if it counted. Oh golly!
I don't know why it didn't count. He Blake Griffin, Wemby.
Oh, not Wemby. Well, time to go see who's trending.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry for everybody who's here and actually seeing whatever. Wemby had 8 blocks in the first half, but let's go see what happened.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
The angle doesn't even make sense, but yeah.
It doesn't. Totally it doesn't with his height.
Griffin.
I don't know how he got it through. He got it through his hands like a goddamn field goal or something.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Ja Morant
it was after the whistle. That's what it was. It was after the whistle.
Yeah, the whistle was blown early. But Ja Morant's the exact person that would look at Wemby from 8 feet away and say, "Yep, I'm going for it."
This isn't just any Wemby. This is a Wemby that had 8 first half blocks.
Oh my god,
he had 8 first half blocks today. So
Keenan, what was funny? What was funny, and we're pushing an hour here already. What was funny, Keenan? The next NBA pod we did, I was gonna say we haven't really seen Wemby get Kobe White dunked on Wemby a couple weeks ago or last week or something like that, and it was kind of like a dunk by. But I was like, we ain't really seen anybody nuts on the forehead type of joint on Wemby, either. And then here we go, Ja Morant, who's the number 1 draft pick. Him and Ant would be the number 1 draft picks to try to body Wemby. Lo and behold, he does it, but they blew the whistle.
Crazy.
Do we want to move on back to number 2 of what we loved here?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of gone through a bunch of stuff that we love. Do you have anything else really? Because I kind of had a lot of the same things. I have only one more thing that we haven't touched on, essentially.
Okay, yeah, I got a couple. I got a few different things on both ends.
Because for me, a lot of it was already touched upon, when Timmy was talking, when you were talking. But the one quick thing I'm going to say was the Rams. Love seeing how the Rams played. I was wrong on. I thought that the way they ended the season, I thought that they weren't prepared. But again, great quarterback, great coach, rested receivers, and the defense that's young and ascending. They sunned the Vikings, and basically they said, "Oh, hey, Lions, you blitzed Sam Darnold, and it was a problem for him. Got it. We don't really blitz often. We're gonna do it. We're gonna sack him 9 times for 82 yards, which is the most in literally the history of I think in the Super Bowl era. It's the most in the playoffs. So good for them. That was it. That was other than that, we've touched upon every other thing that was in my love or hate side. So unless Timmy has more or Kyle, you have more, once you have your more, we can get into picks.
I do want to go in on that Rams thing. Yeah, I like what I see from the Rams defense in that game. Darnold was under pressure literally all game long. I don't think there was a single drive they had where he didn't face a sack or a pressure. I'm not fully confident in the Rams offense.
It looked good enough. Confidence.
They really didn't. They had a lot of, turnovers. They had plus territory. They had the touchdown, obviously, off of the defense. So this offense didn't need to carry them to a win by any means, but I'm still a little worried about it. Like, looking back at that game, do you know who their leading receiver was in that game?
Tyler Higbee, I believe.
Tyler Higbee.
Who left
more
in the
receptions,
second quarter.
more yards. Exactly. Cooper Kupp, non-existent. He had one big play, and other than that, barely got targeted. I'm a little worried about that. Kyron Williams looks solid. He usually always does. I'm still skeptical on them, but I'm still skeptical on Philly. So I think this is going to be a good game no matter what.
I'm nervous for Philly. I'm nervous for
both teams. I don't know who makes it out of this one, but whoever has to play in the NFC Championship game, I'm nervous. And hopefully they cure my nervous after this weekend, but I don't know.
I grew out of this weekend having more confidence in the Lions than I did going into the playoffs. I'm not going to lie to you.
Interesting. They were your Super Bowl winner.
They didn't even play.
Yeah, I know. And I have more confidence in them. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I truly thought the one team that would give them like a true fit would be Philly. I mean, and we'll see, because the Rams moved up, Philly moved back just a hair, not like a lot or anything like that, but just a hair. Did not love AJ Brown trying to read on the sideline. That was weird. Not a big deal, not as big of a deal as I know others are making it, but just weird. Still, something's not right there. Maybe Saquon Barkley can fix it all, but like Jaylen didn't look great.
Saquon's the only confidence I have is he could just run for 200, and that could win them the game right there, and they just play solid defense. Yeah. I don't have a whole ton of confidence in Jalen Hurts. He threw 2 touchdowns. It looks good, but neither of them were Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. They were just kind of like,
and what was Dallas Goedert little broing someone?
Yeah, we got Jahan Dotson to start the game off. I don't know who in their right mind places a first touchdown scorer bet on Jahan Dotson, but it's definitely not me. I would have expected a little bit more out of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith in this win to be confident in them going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple responses. You started this with Rams, Vikings. Just a quick response to just the Vikings' future in general. I'm not so sure like Darnold's not back in Minnesota. You can't really blame the last 2 games on Darnold. The offensive line was atrocious, 9 sacks. Obviously, Darnold holds on the ball too long. Like, that's one of his weaknesses. But there's a chance they franchise him and they bring him back. Obviously, if he doesn't come back, he's going to the usual suspects, Jets, Steelers, maybe the Raiders. Who knows where he ends up, but I'm not putting it past that. I mean, he still won 14 games, right? They were in my cruiserweight division. A lot of people had them contending. Some people had them better than, the likes of the Packers in the division, just straight up with Darnold. So I'm not one of these people who's looking at 2 games and being like, all right, that's Darnold. He's out of here. Because, we don't know with J.J. McCarthy as of yet. We have no clue what that looks like. So that is going to be an interesting offseason. I'm going to get into the second thing I loved because it just goes with the talk of the Rams, the talk of the Philadelphia Eagles. And Keenan, you brought it up. I loved it not because of what he did, but just because of how insane it was and just because this Philly team is insane. A.J. Brown reading on the sideline, funny. It was hilarious. Now, if that was my team, if that was the Pats and I got A.J. Brown reading on the sideline, in the middle of a win, by the way, they're in control of the whole game, I'd be tight. I'd be pissed. I would not be happy about that at all. Like, that's Tom Brady said it in so few words during the game. That's selfish behavior, right? That's not necessarily championship mentality right there.
I don't care if that's what you need to do to get your mind right or whatever, but like, Kyle,
bro,
you're a coach.
That ain't getting your mind right. That ain't
Kyle,
getting your mind right.
You're a coach. Could you imagine? Could you imagine me? You coached me. Could you imagine Matt Duncan's going off for 15? Colby Mattin had 14. Chris LePage is having a great game. I'm like 2 of 4. I don't even got the ball much. We're up 15, and you sub me out, and I'm just on the bench reading, or I'm scrolling on my phone. You would have been up. You would have been so irate with me, like, Keenan, what are you doing?
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. If that's my team, if that's the Pats, I'm pissed. If that's the Pats, I'm pissed. If I'm Jalen Hurts or anybody on that staff, honestly, I'm pissed. That's not cool.
He's done it before during the season. I don't care. And
that's typical diva. That's typical diva receiver behavior. So I'm not chalking it up to getting his mind right. That being said, just for content purposes, just for watching it, just from like when I saw that happen, I busted out laughing. This team is the most unhappy fucking what they get? 14 wins? How many wins did this team get?
I think 13 because they ended up losing or whatever. I think they were a 13-win team,
13
but they could have been a 14.
They were out of the one season.
So yeah, I mean, so we got this is all coming off of what was it? It was that Carolina game where they win, and AJ Brown says they ask him what they need to improve. He says the quarterback position, and then it comes out after that, and then it comes out after that. Then it comes out after that week that who was it? Big Dom and Brandon Graham had to go to Jalen Hurts' house, or I think it was Jalen Hurts' house, and talk about him and AJ Brown's relationship. I've heard way too many Big Dom news. Like Big Dom's like super involved in that organization, which is crazy. Then what happened?
Brandon Graham came out and said, like, yeah, no, they don't really talk. They're not really.
That's cool. Right. Yeah, he said openly, like, yeah, they don't get along, and then he recanted it. Then a couple weeks after that, I think it was the Saturday game, Sirianni's getting into it with it was someone on their defense and the defensive coordinator. They're all woofing it up. Like, I love this team. When this team breaks up
before the season, Sirianni and Hurts couldn't be in the same room.
They are the identity of Philly. They are they embody Philly to a T. I mean, simply told, I mean, Philly was up in this game and Philly's booing. Their fans are booing. Like, this team embodies Philly to a T. They can't help but just have drama. They can't help but just hate on each other. Like, they just cannot help just being mad at each other constantly.
They got to think they're lucky stars Saquon went there and they got Saquon, because without Saquon, this team would be out of the playoffs right now. They couldn't do it. You could give them Najee Harris and Saquon spot another just good back. Nope, not going to do it.
I love it. I'm going to miss when this team's gone, which they'll probably trade AJ Brown this season, and good luck to whoever gets him. But I'm going to miss it all. I'm going to miss AJ Brown wanting to kill Jalen Hurts. I'm going to miss Jalen Hurts playing he's like playing beyond a game manager at this point. And I'm not hating because they're winning. But like between that, Sirianni, again, Big Dom just being thrown in here unnecessarily. I saw
AJ McCarron on Alabama.
Real quick.
Like, it's don't turn the ball over, third downs every now and again, and kind of run, and you get pushed in the back.
Did you guys see the viral video of this guy like cursing out this woman? They were in like the nosebleed seats. And
I didn't.
The Green Bay Philly game?
Yeah. Yes. And he was he was probably in his 50s or 60s. He lost his job because he was cursing this woman out. Whatever. Like, I seen a few videos about that. The most unnecessary headline I saw, though, I forget if it was today or yesterday. I saw something about, it was like people in the Philadelphia Eagles organization and Big Dom have identified such and such person. I'm like, bro, why are they trying to make Big Dom happen this much? Like, I swear to God, they're trying to get Big Dom like a real security job in like Hollywood or some shit, or maybe get him across all 4 major Philly teams. I don't know, but I've heard way too much of Big Dom ever since his incident last season where we got
Big Dom at a press conference just talking about security and stuff. We're like, what are we doing? Makes no sense.
Big Dom loves the spotlight. That's all I'm saying. Big Dom's act like he doesn't love the spotlight. Big Dom loves the spotlight. But I love this Philly team. Big Dom loves the spotlight.
It's like Tommy DeVito's agent loves the spotlight.
Exactly. Shouts to the Italians, though. Shouts to all Italians out there like Big Dom and Tommy DeVito's agent. You guys want me to keep going? Because I got more when it comes to love and hate, and it sounds like you guys kind of just blended in with topics we already had.
Yeah, I mean, if you continue to go, and then we'll get right into picks. But like, I don't have any more, unless Timmy does, and I just spoke for him. I didn't mean to if I did, but like, I don't really have more.
Sorry, I just want to say with the whole AJ Brown reading thing, most selfish behavior I've seen in like quite a while from that. I've never seen. We see him on the iPads all the time. For all I know, they could be playing Angry Birds, but we don't see them read a book. Who the hell brought the book out onto the field for him in the first place? All I can imagine is like their defense gets a pick and they're like, "Yo, AJ, we just got a pick. Let's go." And he's like, "Nah, let me finish this page, guys. I've just got a really good spot in my book." Yeah, like, I'm almost done. Like, what are you talking about? You can't be concentrating on the book and the game at the same time.
Timmy, what would you have done? What do you think your team would have done if Skylar Stone's on the sideline reading a book while you guys are just...
First of all, that's like the worst person to pick to be reading on the sideline.
The first person that came to my head that was on your roster.
Sorry for the Skylar Stone slander. Hopefully he doesn't hear this. But I'm pretty sure Skylar Stone would not be on the team anymore if he was caught reading a book on the sideline. Like,
are you kidding
what are you
me?
doing? Like, that's
reading
insane.
a book. Reading a book, like,
we don't even know what book it was.
It was like a self-help kind of like,
yeah.
It was a motivational kind
it
of
was
self-help.
Like how to get rid of your team starting.
It was like the number one bestseller
book.
the day after on Amazon, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was.
It was a plug. He got paid for it. That's what.
Maybe so. Y'all got anything else, or we can move on?
Inner Excellence is what it was. No, by author Jim Murphy. But his shout out to Jim Murphy, overnight success though. Like, a shout out to him.
He's making money this week, that's for sure.
So like, maybe AJ Brown was like, "Hey, I'll do this here," but like, whatever, don't care. Stupid.
Right. Number 2 on the things I hated from this past weekend, the refs. I did not love what I saw from the refs this weekend. I mentioned it in the Texans-Chargers game. That was textbook intentional grounding. And for no reason, they said, no, he was out of the pocket when you couldn't have been any more in the pocket than C.J. Stroud was. That should have been a safety. So I think I'm not blaming that on the loss at all for the Chargers. They completely, obviously had their own issues. But did it flip the game? Did it change the game? Sure. Yeah, the Texans went down and scored right after that. I did not love the call yesterday with Stafford. Looks like he fumbles. Vikings pick it up, scoop it, and score. But he tosses it. He kind of like flicks it out, right? That too could have been intentional grounding. And this is one thing I hate. They call it back. They say it's not a fumble, but they can't call intentional grounding. They can't go back and change the call when it was clear intentional grounding. And I think the Rams even scored on that drive. They had a positive drive out of that, and that killed the momentum for the Vikings, right? Vikings did themselves no favors, but that's got to at the least be grounding there as well. So I thought those were 2 ugly spots. I'm sure there was more. I think there was even a play, Keenan, on that
Josh Allen, and Josh Allen gets tapped on the back of the head after did you guys see that? The ref go. So Josh Allen got really heated with the ref. It was a holding call, I believe, on Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox in the end zone, and Josh Allen was upset about it. They didn't call it, so another thing to your bad call. And then that ref, I think the head ref of the game, actually went over to the sideline, was talking with Josh Allen, patted him on the head afterwards, and went off. And it was one of those things where it's like, does he have the ref in his back pocket by chance? No. It just didn't look great, to be quite honest with you. But no, it was another bad call. There's been multiple holding. Zach Ertz on the 4th down, that Jayden Daniels that they didn't convert. It was right before Baker Mayfield fumbled the ball. It was definitely pass interference on that one, and they didn't call it, and that would have been 1st and goal at the 1 again. So that would have – it didn't end up mattering because, like, Baker fumbled, and then they end up scoring, so, like, it kind of, like, nullified itself, just a turnover. But if there was no turnover, that really could have changed the complexion because it could have possibly taken 6 points, if not at least 3 off the board for Washington there too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't love the that catch they ruled in the Bills-Broncos game. It was kind of already out of hand. I know we talked about that in the group chat. To me, it seemed like his heel was on the line when he caught it, even after he caught it. I don't know. It seems like if I can make a compelling argument that it was not a catch, that they should not have ruled it a catch. I don't know. I feel like we've seen
I was fine with that one personally. I thought it was. I thought that he had his head. I thought his leg up and knees down, and
I feel like if you got to bend it that much though, and say like, I don't know. Again, I feel like if you can make a compelling argument that he did not catch it, that his foot was on the line, or if you can get a still that his foot was on the line, how can you confidently rule that a catch? That's just my thing. I think, we're 10 years removed, maybe even more. I don't know exactly what year from the Dez caught it thing. And we still don't really know more or less what the hell is or isn't a catch. Seems like this is still a weekly thing. And then this was actually kind of like, this is actually a pat on the back but I still kind of hated it for the refs. But I think it was the same drive as the intentional grounding non-call in Texans Chargers. Someone got a catch over the middle, took 2 steps, did not make a football move, but it seemed like he had the ball long enough for it to be a fumble. And they correctly, by the letter of the law, called it an incomplete pass. But man, it seemed like a fumble. Like he definitely had the ball long enough to where, yes, he did not make a football move, but to my eye, it seemed like a fumble. But I guess that's more a pat on the back for the refs there. But overall, not a bad weekend for them, but it seems like year after year after year after year, there's calls that should be made or should not be made in some cases that they do make or they do not make, and it swings the game or it tilts the game in some sort of way. So I didn't love that from this weekend.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Timmy, you have anything banter on the refs?
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It happens every single year. We're going to have some sort of controversial thing that comes out, and it's going to be a headline. It's going to be, a Monday morning article where it's, should they have won the game if this wasn't called the way it was?
Guarantee it'll be next week.
There will be something probably out of
Guaranteed.
that Kansas City game. It's usually Kansas City that gets some sort of call, but I agree with what you said there at the end about the whole not knowing what's a catch anymore. To me, if you make a catch, just a catch underneath, you take 2 steps, and in the process of being tackled, you fumble the ball, that's a fumble. I don't think there needs to be like the football move thing. I think that's kind of ruined what a catch is, because then it's just up to like the discrepancy of the ref, like what is a football move, Is like a stiff arm a football move? Like if that's what it is, and you're trying to stiff arm that tackle away, then, that's a football move. It's completely up to the ref, which I don't love because I've seen that a few times this year. I believe that there was an Eagles game, same exact thing, makes a routine catch underneath, takes 2 steps and the ball gets punched out, but it's an incomplete pass now because, he didn't make that football move, and I just don't love it. So.
Sure. Yeah, no, and specifically back to that play, I think it was Dalton Schultz maybe. Like he caught it, and again, he kind of turned. He didn't make a football move at all, but after the 2 steps, he had it for like a split second after the 2 steps before anyone made contact with him. It was definitely a catch. You know what I mean? Like had he fallen to the ground there, it's a catch. But the fact that he got tackled and the ball just kind of squirted out, okay, now it's not a fumble. It's just an incomplete pass. I didn't agree with that. Last 2 things I loved and hated. The last thing I loved, Kings of Content are back, baby. You know them, you love them, you hate them. The Dallas Cowboys fire their coach on Monday night or Monday during the day. Past the deadline, like they blocked Mike McCarthy from interviewing with the Bears last week, which really doesn't matter because he's still going to interview with them. And everyone thinks he's coming back, rightfully so. Seems like he's coming back. And then they let go of him on Monday. I guess he wasn't really fired as much as his contract expired. But then we get Deion Sanders talk. There's Jason Witten talk. What's my man's name? What's the OC for the Eagles?
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. Cowboys fans are not wanting him. They don't want this. They don't want an offensive guy who's been in the Dallas building again. I think they think it's going to be Jason Garrett 2.0. I'm ready for whatever happens. Like my immediate reaction when I saw that was just like, here we go. Like I can't wait. Like we're just going to get not only dramatic reactions from Cowboy fans, but the media. And in general, like we just know it's not going to be a normal hire. It's going to be someone like Deion. It could be Bill Belichick coming back from UNC to come coach the Cowboys. Could be a Kellen Moore. It could be, who knows? Like, I don't expect it to be like a Ben Johnson type. I can tell you that. So we just never know. We just never know what it's going to be. Chances are it is going to be someone like Kellen Moore. Cowboys fans are going to be pissed. And we're going to
be Kellen Moore or Deion. It's one of those two.
If it's Deion, bro, like, that's a blessing. That's a blessing to anybody who does this podcast shit, who runs a website, who works in the, like anything like that. Deion is to the Cowboys is a gift. I hope it happens. I'm personally skeptical. That's my dream. That's my dream is we get Deion to the Cowboys because that
your dream would be Aaron Rodgers manages to be the Cowboys quarterback for 1 year with Deion coaching him.
That would be up. I mean, I said,
you said Bill Belichick, but nothing would be Bill better Belichick. Than ego. Yeah. Ayahuasca meets Deion meets Primetime. Primetime ayahuasca would be insane.
You give me Coach Prime with Aaron Rodgers, or you give me Belichick with Aaron Rodgers, or you give me anything at this point with the Cowboys is going to make me happy. They just love being in the news. Jerry loves being in the news, and I love it. I love it back. So thank you, Cowboys. Appreciate it.
All righty. And what last?
No response?
Other than not really. Honestly, I'm waiting for this to unfold unless Timmy has something he wanted to say on Deion and the Cowboys.
I think so. They had kind of come out and said it was like a mutual parting of ways. They said that they made the decision to move on from McCarthy before they even entered contract talks. I'm assuming that means McCarthy came out and said, "Hey, I don't see a future here." So
I think McCarthy wanted a long-term deal, and they wanted like a 1 or 2 year deal. Like I think a 1 year deal. It was one of those things where like they couldn't agree, and McCarthy was like, "If you're not going to have me long term, I don't want to be here." And they were like, "If you're not going to be here short term, then it's like you're on like a prove it contract or something." I don't really know.
I don't know exactly why they couldn't have figured that out a week ago before they blocked the whole coaching job interview. With
the same way they couldn't figure out Dak Prescott couldn't. Same way they couldn't figure out Dak Prescott didn't need to get his deal until a certain period. At the same point, they couldn't get CeeDee Lamb's deal until earlier on. Like. That's why. It's because it's Dallas. They're going to extend everything as long as they possibly can for news and press, and because they don't run themselves very well. That's pretty much it.
You know what? I've said this before. I kind of disagree. I think they're well run. I just think I think their priorities are just headlines over wins, though they do get the win.
That's why I don't think they're well run.
I get you.
I don't think they're a well run football organization, but I do think they're a class organization. Run market.
I think they're a moneymaker.
Organizational market wise, they're perfect. They're great.
But even like to play for, we don't hear players come out of there and be like, "Oh, this is a joke of a place to play." Like people seem to love playing there, and people see like it's not the Jets, right? The Jets are an actual joke.
Yeah, no, it's not that.
But last thing I hated. Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Apparently, Micah Parsons thinks that it's going to be a rough year next year now. He said he had a comment basically saying he already flipped, saying basically that letting McCarthy go was the wrong thing and that this defense is going to be, a trouble to rebuild next year without McCarthy there.
That's an interesting take.
If that's all it took, Micah didn't have any faith in them winning a Super Bowl next year in the first place. So
that's an interesting take that he thinks the defense is going to fall apart given that they still have the DC there. But
I believe the belief is that Zimmer's not going to be there either.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It was about coaching staff and contract length, as Keenan said. Yeah. So maybe that would be very interesting. The last thing I hated, I sent this to the group chat the other day, and I was surprised there was not much response to this. Division champions no longer getting the home seat, the higher seed in the playoffs.
Is that official?
They're talking about reformatting, and just the talk of it makes me sick to my stomach. That's one of the things that makes the NFL is the division winners, is the 2 divisional games meaning so much per year. If they go the NBA route and just eliminate that, and like for instance, obviously this year the Vikings, that would have gave them the 4 seed or such, or maybe even higher than that, given that they had.
That would have given the Eagles would have had to play Week 18 because if not, that would have given the Vikings the 2.
Yeah, and I think that
that game would have pretty much been just for 1 and 2.
That's insanely silly because this was such an anomaly of a year where we had not just that high of a winning total in the NFC in general. Yeah, that's an anomaly, or we might get that some years. But the fact that you got 3 of them in one division, the fact that Green Bay, the Vikings, and Detroit were that competitive, that's not going to happen not only every year, but that's not going to happen like twice in 5 years. That's just not going to happen. We rarely see that in the NFL. We do see years where it's like, 3 10-win teams. But the fact that you got a 15-win team, a 14-win team, and then Packers got 10 or 11, you're not going to see that.
Because they couldn't beat the Bears last week.
Right. You're just not going to see that. So I think that's a classic overreaction. Again, I mean, I said this about the playoffs and I said this about the 16-game season. And again, like a few years removed now, I don't hate the 17-game season and I don't hate the 14 teams in the playoffs. But this is truly one of the things that like makes the NFL is how important the divisional games are year after year. You get rid of that, I don't know. We're obviously all still going to watch it. We're all still going to love it, but it is going to take just a little bit of excitement out of the NFL season. Divisional games are like mini playoff games during the year. They're a luxury.
It's kind of the same thing as how they've kind of eliminated a lot of conferences in college football. Like a lot of people would hang like 2 years ago, Michigan, Ohio State was for the college football playoffs. So like it's like that game, like pretty much every year you could almost pencil that in, especially when Harbaugh was there, Ryan Day's there. Like Michigan, Ohio State's pretty much, hey, whoever wins this game is essentially going to the college football playoffs because of a lot of big games. And so you eliminate that, plus also you add the 12. I'm fine with it because you got a team like Notre Dame who wouldn't have been in the playoff this year, but they're in the national championship. I think that extending the playoff is fine, but I think also taking off the importance of that division game, you still have the rivalry there, but it's not the same exact thing. And it's the same thing as you were saying, like Vikings, you're able to dress up more, not just like because it was like you could dress it up, but like it was that very important. The Lions lose, they have to go to LA. They could have easily lost that game. So especially the LA defense that showed, they could have easily lost that game. Instead, they're at home, they're rested. David Montgomery's probably expecting to come back this week. They have multiple, like they get defensive players back and they're in an advantageous position rather than being on the road. And the Vikings are now at home because of that. So I agree with you. I just think keep the division, keep it how it is. I understand that things are whatever, and I understand how other people are in the sense like, well, it sucks that a 14-win team did so well during the season, but just because someone else is there above them, they didn't get. That's life.
Well, the weird thing about it is
something other people are above you. It's life. It sucks.
The weird thing about it for me is much like the kickoff last year. I didn't hear many people complaining about this. Like, obviously, the kickoff thing was more internal. And by the way, I hope they get rid of that because it's added not much to the season, not nearly as much as we thought it would. But I didn't really hear many people, whether it was online or in the media, I didn't really hear many people complaining about the fact about, the Vikings having to go on the road because they didn't win the division. Like, we usually get this in a case of like 1 or 2 wins, like a 10-win team versus a 9-win team having to go, or if they won the division, or in the case of 1 or 2 wins, we have never, to my memory, at least within the last 10 years, 8 years, I can't remember a 14-win team having to go on the road and be a wild card team. Like, it just doesn't happen in the NFL. And it, again, it might be something that happens once every 10 years, but by and large, this has never been an issue in the NFL. I've not heard this complaint in the NFL. So I was very surprised to just see this overreaction. And again, this has been a staple of the NFL forever, how important the divisions are. So very surprised. What do you think, Tim?
I think I'm kind of on both sides of the fence here. I think the NFL needs to make divisions as important as they are currently. But at the end of the day, I want to see the best football teams in the playoffs. And we've seen it, like you said, this is like a once every 10 years, maybe even 2 decades that we see something like this. But we've also seen something like the 7-9 Seahawks make the playoffs because they won their division. That's not good football. Like, they're a bad football team, but they get credited with a playoff berth because they're in a bad division. I don't love that.
Hear that.
If there's some way that they can work it to where divisions are still as important as they are, but we get the best football teams in the playoffs, I'm all for it. I don't know. They got to keep making the divisional games important. Maybe they're worth more when it comes to seeding, and they seed based on a new point system, not necessarily just wins, and then division wins are worth more points or something like that. Like, there's ways they could do it.
You would have to do it like if you are a division winner under 55% win percentage, you can't, which would be basically you have to be like above 9 and you have to be above 10-7, or like above 500 maybe, or something like that. Like, you'd have to do if you were going to.
I'd be okay with that.
What?
I'd be okay with that.
So it'd have to be something like that. Like, I don't like, you'd either make it like they have to be 10-7 or 9-8, depending on like whatever you want to deem like above 500 now, since we don't have 16 games even. Or you'd make them have to be 10-7 because if you did it like 55% or just like something like that, like that would be, so it'd eliminate the fact of like, say, we'll just say the Texans flamed out and they went 8-9 and then they were the worst team. Like, Then it actually after that it went by who was the best and worst. Like you had to get to a certain amount of wins to lock in your top 4 spot. And then if not, that top 4 spot would then go to the next team there, which would eliminate that. But we don't always get that really often either. But yeah, no, I'm with you, Kyle. I don't really love it. I don't love change all that much when it comes to things that have been very good, especially because I'm a big historical guy. So I understand like if it was flawed before, it can't be flawed. Like why would you always want to keep it flawed? But at the same time, it's like
it'd be one thing if there's real
it's
complaints.
hard to compare and contrast things too.
It'd be one thing if there's real complaints. The only time I've really heard complaints about this system is like when Tim brought up like when a 7-9 team wins, like you're gonna have people complain. But in years like this, I really, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm ignorant, but I really did not see too much outcry. If anything, I saw people think it was cool that that NFC North was so loaded. So definitely weird. Hopefully they don't overreact, but we'll see. And maybe it'll all make more sense when this eventually does become an 18-game season. But we'll have to see years down the road.
My biggest problem is just the losing part. It's not necessarily that the 14-win Vikings are a 5 seed and the 10-7 Bucks are a 4 seed. My problem is the Bucks could have made it in at 9-8. Mm-hmm. Like they didn't need to win their last game. They could have just been a just above 500 team and make it in. And they lost in the first round. They got upset in the first round. Like as much as we love the Bucks and we even considered them like sleepers, they didn't hold up. They lost like everything about it. Like all in all, maybe they shouldn't even have been in the playoffs. I don't know who would have replaced them to make it even better because we did get a damn good game, but they could have been 8-9, and I think they would have had the tiebreaker over the Falcons. So even then, that's like I think that's a problem, and there's got to be a way that they can fix that. Like Keenan said, maybe it's if you dip below 500, there's new rules or something like that. But I just want to see bad teams out of the playoffs.
It'd be top tier nastiness if we had a committee for the NFL playoffs like there is in college football. It would be all kinds of nastiness.
That would be even worse.
It'd be all kinds of nastiness.
That would be even worse.
So what we're going to do here, we're going to end this episode, come back for part 2 for our NFL picks. This was part 1 where we're chopping it up about the love and hates about Wildcard weekend. This was obviously Kyle, Keenan, and Tim. We will be right back. Pop into this and then pop into our picks for part 2. We're out of here.